It's also a history of repeated cover-up of that abuse by the Catholic Church hierarchy.
Breaking news, the Attorney General's office releases its report into sexual abuse within the Archdiocese of Baltimore. 11 News has live team coverage of what's in that report and reaction from victims.
It's not a new issue. It's something that people have known about for a long time.
Archbishop William Laurie speaks exclusively to 11 News' Jason Newton, what he is saying in response to the report.
And now that that report is out, what comes next? The two recommendations it spells out and how one of them is taking a major step closer to becoming reality today.
From WBAL TV 11, this is breaking news.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Kai Reed.
And I'm Andre Hepkins. A redacted report on child sexual abuse within the Baltimore Archdiocese is now public.
The 463-page document reveals a long history of widespread child sexual abuse by the clergy and clerical members, plus efforts to cover everything up by the Catholic Church. We have live team coverage starting with 11 News I-Team reporter Dave Collins. And Dave, this report goes into a lot of detail.
A lot of detail that we haven't seen before. According to the report, young people in some parishes were preyed upon by multiple abusers over decades. The report finds clergy used the power and authority of the ministry to exploit the trust of children and their families.
Today, certainly in Maryland, is a day of reckoning and a day of accounting.
Maryland Attorney General Anthony Brown is referring to this 463-page report that documents, quote, the depraved and systemic failure of the Archdiocese to protect the children it was charged to keep safe.
This is a full accounting. There are details of repeated, tortuous, terrorizing, depraved abuse.
The investigation uncovered the extent of the power and authority the clergy used to exploit the trust of the children. They told their victims the abuse was God's will. Some threatened that the victim or the victim's family would go to hell if they told anyone. They attempted to normalize sexual behavior as roughhousing. According to the report, certain parishes had multiple abusers. St. Mark's in Catonsville had 11 child abusers living and working there from 1964 to 2004. 4 parishes had 6 abusers, including St. Michael Overley. The report cites a case where a sexually abused child came to a priest for counseling. His parents so trusting, they let him spend the night. The report says the priest raped him for 5 years. A distraught father of a young girl demanded a priest be removed. The priest confessed to an uncontrollable attraction to young girls and a yielding to temptation from time to time. The Archdiocese quietly got him into psychiatric treatment and reassigned him to desk work where he would not be exposed to temptation.
It's not only churches, it is schools associated with the Archdiocese. So the institutions associated with the respective archdioceses are the target of our investigations.
The report details the abuse by Father Maskell. At least 39 people reported being sexually abused by him. 9 girls described being given tea, soda, or wine, or even being hypnotized. 7 girls complained they were forced to have sex with Maskell and other men. The AG's report indicates that Maskell and Father Magnus worked as a team, abusing the girls at Archbishop Keough High School. Many of the victims who were sexually abused by Maskell described Magnus as participating in and being present for the abuse.
But for an insurmountable legal obstacle, we will do everything we can to bring those abusers and those who enabled them to justice.
In a separate section, the report details sexual abuse by 156 priests. The AG's office set up a hotline to report past abuse. That number is 410-576-6312, and so far, they have received some 300 inquiries. Reporting live from the newsroom, David Collins, WBAL TV 11 News.
Well, David, thank you. The Attorney General's report makes 2 recommendations to curtail future abuse. One of them actually made some major headway today. That recommendation is to amend or abolish the statute of limitations for civil actions involving child sex abuse. Studies have shown that half of all victims don't report abuse until they are over the age of 50. Right now in Maryland, victims have no recourse if they are over the age of 38. Today, the Maryland House of Delegates gave final approval to a bill that would eliminate the statute of limitations. That bill has been in the works for months now. It now heads to the governor's desk for approval.
Now, the report's second recommendation is to expand public accountability, and that's because abusers include non-clerical members. The report says, quote, the Archdiocese should consider expanding its list of credibly accused to include anyone who committed an act of child abuse under the auspices of the Archdiocese.
Well, right now, Baltimore County Police say Special Victims Unit detectives are reviewing this report. A statement says in part, quote, all survivors of unreported abuse that occurred in Baltimore County are encouraged to contact the Baltimore County Police Department regardless of when it happened. Abuse survivors can contact the number there on your screen. It's 410-887-2223. Ahead at 4:30 tonight, you will also hear from an expert offering some advice to abuse victims.
Right now at 4, we want to get to an 11 News exclusive. Anchor Jason Newton just interviewed Archbishop William Laurie. He joins us now live with the Archbishop's reaction to the report's release. And Jason, I can't wait to hear what he has to say about this scathing report.
Yeah, and Andre had a lot to say about this report. We spoke to him not that long ago in this exclusive interview, and he said his first thought goes with the victim survivors involved in these cases. He's called this report both shocking and soul-searing. And he says even though this has been investigated and studied for decades even, the hurt never fades.
It's not a new issue. It's something that people have known about for a long time. But again, seeing it put together in one report will have a huge impact on people. And I think they will experience some shock and dismay. And
yeah, the church has since released this. It's a pastoral letter. It has an apology. Also has spoken a lot about how the church plans on dealing with this and has dealt with it in the past. So coming up at 5 and 6 o'clock, we'll hear more from the Archbishop. We'll also ask him a little bit about how parishioners and parishes will deal with the faithful as they come to church this Sunday with plenty on both their hearts and minds. Here in Baltimore, Jason Newton, WBAL, TV 11 News.
We'll check in with you a little later. 11 News will bring you continuing coverage throughout today's newscast. Right now, you could read the entire investigative report from the Attorney General's office on our website, WBALTV.com, and on the mobile app. We also have a timeline of the events leading up to the release of the report.
Oh, new at 4, a 15-year-old is facing charges connected to a mass shooting that left 1 person dead and 5 others injured. The teen is accused of shooting those 6 people back on March 23rd along Edmondson Avenue. Local boxer Ernest Hall died. The teen is now charged with first-degree murder and 5 counts of first-degree attempted murder.
You know, Hall's family issued this statement to 11 News saying, quote, on behalf of the children of the Ernest Hall, the family would like to thank the hard and diligent work of the Baltimore City Police Department on the swift apprehension of the first suspect in our loved one's murder. And right now, reaction continues to pour in after the historic arrest of former President Donald Trump. He faces 34 felony counts stemming from hush money payments.
As Alice Barr reports, he is now insisting he did nothing wrong.
Fresh questions today about the legal and political path ahead for former President Trump after his historic court appearance on 34 felony counts of falsifying business records in an alleged hush money scheme before the 2016 election. Back home at Mar-a-Lago overnight.
There is no case. There's no case.
The former president already testing the judge's warning to avoid language that could incite violence or unrest, slamming the judge, his family, and the Manhattan district attorney.
The criminal is the district attorney.
President Trump heard the judge. He's not done anything to try to incite violence.
Republican lawmakers rallying behind the former president, with even some critics like Senator Mitt Romney questioning the strength of the case that relies on an untested legal strategy to elevate the charges to felonies.
We cannot and will not normalize serious criminal conduct.
House GOP leaders pushing to make the Manhattan DA answer questions on Capitol Hill.
We know that this is all about, in our judgment, election interference in the most important election we have. So we want to talk to him.
Mr. Trump is due back in court in December with a potential trial now on a collision course with the 2024 Republican presidential primaries. As we approach primary season, there are questions about how long former President Trump's wall of Republican support will hold, especially if we start to see any indictments in the separate investigations he faces regarding alleged election interference and classified documents. In Washington, Alice Barr, WBAL TV 11 News.
Oh, if you've been outside, it probably doesn't seem like it right now, but there is the potential for some severe weather tomorrow.
Yeah, the Orioles even postponed that home opener tomorrow. Tom, we were waiting to see if that was going to happen, but clearly the forecast just said it was no point in trying to get that game in.
Yeah, pretty good chance there'll be showers and storms rolling through between 3 p.m. and 6 p.m. tomorrow afternoon. So although the storms may be scattered, it's just pretty likely that most of the area will see some showers and storms. And that's coming on the heels of some record warmth today. Look at these highs reported so far. That 84-degree reading at BWI ties the record set in 2010. We'll get the official high temperature for the day in an hour or so. And they may well have made it above the 84-degree mark there. Look at 88, like summertime in Frederick for the high temperature, 87 at Dulles Airport. The current temperatures have dropped back a degree or two in some spots, but it's still pretty warm all across central and western Maryland. There are a couple isolated storms in the mountains, but for the next 12 hours around Baltimore, just some clouds and warm temperatures. Lows only dropping into the 70s tonight, and then those storms fire up tomorrow afternoon all across the state. We'll track the storms and give you the complete 7-day forecast in just a couple minutes.
See you in a bit, Tom. A 2-year-old is dead after a dog attack in Frederick County. Officers responded to West B Street in Brunswick around 5 o'clock last night. They found the boy with life-threatening injuries from a dog bite. He died at a hospital. The boy and his family are from Virginia. The dog is currently in quarantine. A 13-year-old accused of assaulting a Cecil County deputy and school staff is facing charges. Officers responded to High Road School in Elkton last week, where staff members say the boy pushed an administrator and spit on someone else. The boy allegedly threw something at a deputy and tried to stab him with a pencil. Police found out the teen has been referred to the Department of Juvenile Services by the police 7 other times over the past 6 months. A Middle River man is convicted of sexual abuse of a minor in Harford County. Marvin Scriven's charge stems from sexually assaulting a 12-year-old girl. During the investigation, Scriven gave multiple inconsistent statements to police when describing what happened. Scriven now faces up to 25 years in prison. Sentencing is set for September 5th.
A 15-year-old girl is recovering after a shooting in East Baltimore. Officers responded to East Belnord Street near Ashland Avenue around 10:30 last night and found the 15-year-old girl had been shot in the arm. If you have information about this shooting, you are asked to call Metro Crime Stoppers at 1-866-7-LOCK-UP. Still ahead on 11 News at 4, some big news for the Baltimore Orioles.
How their top pitching prospect Rodriguez performed in his first major league start. Plus,
it's now safe for neighbors to come back home after a 700-acre fire forced evacuations in Owings Mills. I'm Brianna Ross. I'll have the latest updates when we come back.
Dozens of Baltimore County residents can now return to their homes after an 8-alarm brush fire forced a lot of evacuations.
Well, the fire started yesterday in Owings Mills in the Soldiers Delight area and took several hours and a lot of units to get under control. 11 News reporter Brianna Ross is live for us near Ward's Chapel and Deer Park Road with an update. Brianna.
Hey guys, so firefighters just packed up and left about an hour ago after 24 hours of fighting the fire and managing hot spots across 700 acres of land. We're still seeing some of those hot spots right now. Earlier today, we saw helicopters dropping water and crews using any tools they could find to make sure this area is safe as evacuated residents come home.
It was really intense. It was, boy, I've never seen anything like it.
Lauren Hughes and her husband Shane cannot get these images out of their minds. Plumes of smoke and flames as high as 300 feet, just a short distance away from their home and their farm.
There's been small brush fires every year there seems to be one or two, but this was pretty intense. It sheds a new light now when I see all the forest fires and the things that, you associate something like this with out west.
Definitely not something anyone expects to see here in Baltimore County.
We don't normally see them here, so this is the largest fire I've ever seen in Baltimore County as far as spreading in the acreage.
This escalated to an 8-alarm fire. That is a huge incident. to find something similar in size and scope, you have to go back to the 1970s.
The fire started around 3 Tuesday afternoon in the 5100 block of Deer Park Road and spread over more than 700 acres of land. A firefighter sustained minor injuries while fighting the fire, but no one was seriously hurt. The fire destroyed 2 outbuildings, but not any homes. 200 people from all over our area worked all throughout last night just to get the fire under control.
This was truly an all-hands-on-deck effort that required friends and partners from Baltimore City, Howard, Anne Arundel, Frederick, Carroll, Pennsylvania, our friends in Maryland Forestry.
The big challenge, getting water into the area without any nearby fire hydrants. The Maryland Army National Guard's helicopters did 12 airdrops on Tuesday, spraying 600 gallons of water with each one. They continued those airdrops throughout the day Wednesday. Now crews and neighbors nearby are hoping for rain to prevent any more flare-ups.
Until we get some significant rain, there's always the chance. It happened yesterday, it could happen next week, depending on the weather.
The Maryland Department of Natural Resources is now taking over the scene. They'll monitor the area for a while. All of the roads around here are back open now. The cause of this fire is still under investigation. Reporting live, I'm Brianna Ross, WBAL TV 11 News.
Thanks, Brianna. Some situation out there. All right, today the Orioles called up their #1 pitching prospect, Grayson Rodriguez. He started today's game against the Texas Rangers in Arlington. And right now the score is 2-4 with the Rangers up top. 11 Sports Director Jerry Sandusky will have highlights coming up at 6 o'clock. And some bad news or good news, depending on how you look at it. And if you plan on going on tomorrow's home opener against the Yankees, it was just postponed due to the possibility of severe weather. The game will now be played on Friday at 3:05. WBAL is your home for Orioles baseball this season. Make sure to listen to either 98 Rock, WBAL News Radio 1090 AM, or 101.5 FM.
There will be some road closures for upcoming events around CFG Bank Arena this weekend. They'll start tomorrow and last through Saturday night. They'll be in effect starting at 7 each night. Impacted roads include the Pratt Street left turn lane onto northbound Howard Street, Lombard Street right lane onto northbound Howard Street, and Howard Street between Pratt and Baltimore Streets. Right now, some parts of Illinois are recovering from some tornadoes. The National Weather Service confirmed an EF2 touchdown in the northwest part of the state. The storm took off the roof of a gas station here and a restaurant, eventually landed on a tire repair shop. According to the National Weather Service, a tornado was on the ground for about a minute and traveled about a half a mile.
Now, your WBAL TV 11 weather forecast with Chief Meteorologist Tom Tasselmeyer.
Summer-like warmth across a good part of Maryland today. The exceptions, as we've been mentioning for the past couple of weeks, right along the shore of the bay or the coast because of the chilly bay water or ocean water temperatures. Ocean City only in the 60s today, 70s in Middle River, Annapolis, Patuxent River. But if you get away from those cooling effects of the bay or the ocean, high temperatures today made it to 88 in Frederick. Mid to upper 80s down across northern Virginia. Records at Dulles for high temperatures, and 84 at BWI Marshall ties the record for today. That was set in 2010 for that record high down at BWI Marshall. These are the current temperatures now. We're in the 80s. The temperatures have dropped back a degree down at the airport, but still very warm, very summer-like. 90 at Petersburg, West Virginia. Just incredible warmth here for this early in the season, and that has fueled a couple of isolated showers up in the higher terrain to our west, parts of Pennsylvania, western Maryland, seeing some isolated showers that are tracking northeast with that strong push of warm air coming up from the south. That'll be with us through the night. This steady supply of warm air will keep temperatures unusually warm tonight. Some areas may not get below 70 degrees on a night when the normal low is around 40 in Baltimore. We're going to be way above that tonight, setting the stage for another warm day tomorrow. But eventually this cold front will pass through. That's coming through tomorrow evening. As the front is making its way through, this line of showers and storms that we see along it will be tracking through our area as well. There's a severe weather threat right now from Ohio down through Tennessee into parts of Mississippi and Louisiana. Severe thunderstorms or tornado possibilities along that front right now. Tomorrow, the risk for severe storms is centered over the mid-Atlantic, really from New York City to Baltimore down to Richmond and into North Carolina. It's not as high a risk as they have out west right now, but it is a marginal risk that some of the storms would have damaging winds and large hail. That seems to be the main threat for some of the storms tomorrow. Overnight tonight, no weather problem. A mild night through the evening hours, mostly to partly cloudy skies across the region, but temperatures climbing into the 80s again. And then from about 2 p.m. to 6 or 7, this line of showers and storms rumbles through Baltimore onto the eastern shore and then off the coast later tomorrow night by about 11 o'clock. Behind the front, it will be noticeably cooler for Friday with cloudy skies. Highs on Friday only in the upper 50s to low 60s. So we go from summer-like warmth to some chilly spring air returning. Partly cloudy tonight, down to only about 70. That's like a summer night. Impact weather tomorrow for some strong afternoon thunderstorms. Highs again in the low 80s in Baltimore, mid 80s to our south. And then cooler on Friday with cloudy skies. The Orioles at least will have dry weather, but highs only around 62. 54 on Saturday, and a nice sunny finish to the weekend on Sunday.
Much better opening day forecast. Thank you, Tom, for that. All right, a Baltimore-based olive oil company is committing $30,000 to funding the trash wheels. This marks Pompeian's third year of adopting the trash wheels. It's part of the Healthy Harbor Partnership, which helps beautify the harbor and surrounding areas. Applications are open for projects that will clean public spaces. A new report is out on Maryland casinos. It says they generated more than $176 million in gaming just last month. It's the fifth best single month total in the history of Maryland's casino program. This represents a 3.5% hike compared to March of last year, and Maryland Lottery and Gaming says contributions this year totaled more than $74 million, and that's more than a $2 million increase from last year. And contributions to the Education Trust Fund this year is topping $54 million, which is a 3.5% increase.
Well, the Maryland Lottery is celebrating its 50th anniversary this year and recognizing some of its legacy retailers. The lottery's longest-serving retailer, Costas Inn, was honored today. The family-owned and operated restaurant has been a Baltimore staple since 1971. Maryland Lottery is set to recognize more than 30 local businesses.
Some smiles over there.
Yeah.
All right, still to come on 11 News at 4. A woman steals a police cruiser and leads deputies on a chase.
Yeah, this is wild. In today's must-watch videos, we'll show you the whole incident. It was all caught on camera.
Wow, plus a Kentucky woman celebrates a major milestone. How this 103-year-old says she managed to live so long.
All right, well, now to today's must-watch videos. A woman stole a Los Angeles County Sheriff's Office patrol car, according to police, and led deputies on a high-speed chase. The suspect is on video here, weaving through traffic, driving off a freeway and onto an industrial complex as she tried to get away. Deputies were able to box her in here and pulled her out of the vehicle and arrested her.
Those things never end without an arrest or something like that,
Usually not
right?
well, yes.
All right. Well, take a look at this. Thousands of potatoes covered the side of a road after a tractor-trailer accident in West Virginia. Authorities say the big rig rolled over and crashed a few yards from Interstate 77. One person was taken to the hospital. The road is back open, but crews are still picking up all of those potatoes.
All of those potatoes.
A lot of ingredients for a lot of French fries.
Exactly. A woman from Louisville, Kentucky marked a major milestone over the weekend. Effie Nipper turned 103 years old. She's seen some things, right?
You think?
Dozens of her family members and friends joined her for a really big celebration. Nipper says she's managed to live this long by eating healthy, going to church, and loving everybody.
All right.
She said she doesn't feel old, but admits she has dealt with more pain as she has aged.
Food, God, and love.
Food, God, and love.
All
We wish
right.
her many more years.
That's right. All right, still ahead on 11 News at 4. Hearing from victims after today's Attorney General's report release.
I'm Lisa Robinson. Coming up, survivors speak out after the AG's report in the Baltimore Archdiocese is released.
Plus, a new database could revolutionize the treatment of Alzheimer's. How much funding that project will get.
From WBAL TV 11, this is breaking news.
Who in hell wouldn't want to be excited about this horrible stuff that's going to be in these papers?
The state attorney general releases a redacted report into sexual abuse within the Archdiocese of Baltimore. Right now at 4, how some of these victims are responding.
Yeah, we continue to follow that breaking news tonight. And just a few hours ago, the State Attorney General released a long-awaited report on sexual abuse within the Baltimore Archdiocese.
And prior to that release, survivors met privately with the Attorney General before speaking with the media. 11 News reporter Lisa Robinson brings you their reaction.
Survivors have been waiting a long time for this investigation and some accountability. Survivors emerged from the AG's office with part of the report in hand. Teresa Lancaster says she was sexually abused by a Catholic priest and his friends while attending Archbishop Keough High School in the 1970s. And for decades, she and other survivors have reported the abuse. She says for decades, the church covered it up.
I'm actually more in shock than relief. We've waited 4+ years for this, and Jean and I, Doe and Roe, have been waiting since 1994 when we filed our case to get this stories out into the public so people can know exactly what went on behind closed doors. So I feel relief, yes, I'm glad it's out, but I want to try to get more.
Meanwhile, the Baltimore County Police Department Special Victims Unit is reviewing the AG's report. All survivors of unreported abuse that occurred in Baltimore County are encouraged to contact them regardless of when it happened. A victim advocate is available to provide information, support, and referrals to survivors and their families. Lisa Robinson, WBAL TV 11 News.
Lisa, thank you very much. And joining us right now in the studio, Stacey Brown. She is the program and research director at the Family Tree, the local nonprofit helps families and children deal with abuse and trauma.
Stacey, thank you so much for being with us. We really appreciate it. Part of this investigation focuses on victims not feeling comfortable about coming forward. Can you discuss about how difficult that is and what you suggest and how people should, be able to work through this?
Sure. So I first want to say that abuse is still happening now. I know when we talked about what was just shown in that report, it talked about people from the past, but the abuse is still happening today, right now. And the best thing that we can do is educate ourselves. So as parents, as teachers, as coaches, and individuals in youth-serving organizations, educate themselves on what child abuse prevention is and what that looks like in the signs and symptoms, but also be ready to report. When you see something, say something.
And while we're chatting about this, we do want to say that we're putting up the resources on the screen for anyone who needs them, so definitely check that out there. While we're doing that, Stacey, talk to us about potential victims out there right now, who are watching this all unfold, and they're afraid to speak up, they're afraid to come forward. What do you suggest in terms of where they start? A family member? I know that's different for everybody,
So I would say that as adults, we need to step up. If we see something, we need to say something. We need to report that. Notably, this month is Child Abuse Prevention Month. And so now is the perfect time to educate ourselves on the signs and symptoms of abuse, what that looks like, what's the stats is around that, and how to prevent it. You can do that by going onto our website, which is www.familytreemd.org, and clicking onto our Child Abuse Prevention tab.
Let's talk more about prevention. What are the signs of abuse that we could all look out for as adults? And the report says that priests would prey on the children who trusted them and children who were timid or came from troubled homes. Like, how do we look out for these signs?
I think the biggest sign and or misconception is the stranger danger, right? We were taught coming up, stranger danger. Well, that's not the case when it comes to child sexual abuse. It's usually a friend, a family member, a colleague, a coach, someone close to the family. And what happens is that person is generally very charming, and they use that charm to groom the family and gain the trust of the child and or adult.
How do we stop that cycle?
I think education, really providing education around what child abuse looks like and how to help prevent that with all of the signs and symptoms. Really looking at some of the characteristics. Like if there's an adult who is around children all the time socially who are not within the age group, that could be something to look at. So things such as that.
All right, speaking of education, thank you, Stacey Brown.
Thank you.
For stopping by. And we have some links and other information that you will find useful on our website, WBALTV.com.
All right, well, 11 News anchor Jason Newton exclusively spoke with Archbishop William Lori about the report today. The Archbishop says reforms have already been underway within the Catholic Church for decades.
That reform began 4 decades ago. And it began largely, if I may say, through the voices of victims and taking victims seriously. Was it halting? Were there mistakes along the way? Of course there were. But that has grown progressively stronger, and we continue to strengthen our policies, our procedures, our efforts at culture change as the years go by.
We will certainly hear more from Archbishop Lori, and Jason will lead our report release coverage live at 5 o'clock tonight. You will hear more of his interview with the Archbishop coming up.
And right now, you could read the nearly 500-page report from the Attorney General's office on our website, WBALTV.com, and of course our mobile app. We also have a timeline of the events leading up to the report's release.
Well, here's a look at some of the other stories we're following right now. An 8-alarm brush fire in Owings Mills is contained. Fire crews worked through the night to put out hot spots. Officials say the last time the county dealt with something of this size and scope was back in the 1970s when there was a fire and explosion in Upper Co. 11 News reporter Brianna Ross will have reaction from neighbors in that area coming up on 11 News at 5 o'clock.
Right now, a 15-year-old is facing charges in connection with a mass shooting. It happened back on March 23rd along Edmondson Avenue in West Baltimore. Local boxer Ernest Hall died in that shooting and 5 other people were hurt. The teen is now charged with first-degree murder and 5 counts of first-degree attempted murder.
Well, in today's medical alert, the National Institute on Aging is moving forward with a real-world Alzheimer's disease database. The agency posted a notice of the grant for the 6-year database project last month. The agency plans to now commit $50 million a year, totaling $300 million. The earliest start date here is April 2024.
All right, still ahead on 11 News at 4. For some of us listening to the song Baby Shark,
oh boy,
it may feel like torture.
I think there are a lot of parents out there who would agree with that. Why one court, however, has ruled it actually was torture for 2 Oklahoma inmates.
Oh boy, all right. Google is testing out a free price guarantee program for flights. Chief Consumer Correspondent Jeff Rosen explains how you'll get your money back and what you need to know for the next time you book a vacation. The U.S. Department of Justice just reached a massive settlement with the victims of a 2017 mass shooting. 26 people died and 22 others were hurt in Sutherland Springs, Texas. The DOJ announced an agreement to settle the claims for more than $144 million. A federal court in 2021 ruled the U.S. government was liable for damages. The judge concluded the Air Force failed to exercise reasonable care when it didn't submit the shooter's criminal history to the FBI.
In New York, the 3 NYPD officers who were attacked with a machete-style blade on New Year's Eve were honored today. The assault happened at a security checkpoint near Times Square. Authorities say 19-year-old Trevor Bickford struck one officer with the blade and the other with the handle. Bickford pleaded not guilty to state charges. He also faces federal charges related to that attack. Developing in California right now, the founder of Cash App, Bob Lee, was found stabbed to death in downtown San Francisco. Lee's death was confirmed by the CEO of his current employer, Mobile Coin, who tweeted this morning that Lee was an incredible human being. Lee was found stabbed in the city's Rincon Hill neighborhood. He died at a hospital. No arrests have been made so far.
2 former Oklahoma County jail guards were just sentenced. They forced inmates to listen to children's songs, including Baby Shark, on repeat while they stood handcuffed. The guards pleaded no contest to misdemeanor cruelty charges for the 2019 incident. They were put on probation for 2 years and fined $200 each. They were also ordered to complete community service and pay $300 in compensation for the victims.